Yes. So hello everyone, welcome back to our channel Known for Knowledge. So today we are going to learn about the transportation in plants and in animals. So this is going to be a very interesting topic. So I request everyone to please be ready with a pen and a book so that you can all jot down all important points which I'm actually telling. So it is whether it is the differences between any two, xylem and phloem or anything. I request you all to please to make a note of it so that you don't forget them as well. Okay. So first of all, I want to ask you, how are you all? I guess you all are fine, right? Yes. And in the last two previous classes, and first we have discussed about the nutrition, and then we have discussed about the respiration in detail. We have actually understood about those two things, those two important topics. But today in this class, we are mainly going to discuss about the process. What is actually the process which is involved in the transportation in both plants and in animals. So before we actually go into the topic, I think in the last year we actually learned about the different processes, different tissues which are actually involved in the transportation in both plants and animals. Like in the last year we actually learned about the xylem and the phloem tissues. In detail we have learned about that chapter in the last year. But today, but in this year, we're not going to in detail about each and every tissue and everything. That is all not required. Just we are going to see that what is actually how the transition occur in both the phloem and xylem tissues. That is the main focus that we are going to see in the transportation in plants. So when you talk about what is actually the transportation, is nothing but the process of the distribution of oxygen, food particles, water and minerals to all the parts of the plant body or the animal body or any other living body, then it is considered to be the transport system. So that is considered to be the transport system. But when you're talking about the transportation system in plants, so before we actually go to the plants, let's plants. So what is actually this diffusion process? Diffusion process is nothing but we are trying to see that the water particles are actually going from the different pressure differences from the areas which there is a high water concentration to the low water concentration in those kind of areas. For example, if you see in both plants and animals, if you see in plants as well, so the soil particles of the plant is actually having a lot of amount of water particles, so it must be transported to the plant, right? So there in that time also the pressure difference is actually being created. That means the soil is having a greater water concentration as compared to the plant particles, the plant root hairs. So that situation also what is transported. So in the similar way, with the process of the diffusion also, the water is actually being transported from one from a place where there is a high pressure to a place there is a low pressure. So with here, so what you might ask, what is the main difference between the osmosis and what is the difference between the diffusion process? For a diffusion process, you do not require any semi-permeable membrane, whereas for the process of osmosis, you require a semi-permeable membrane. Otherwise, everything is mostly same between what is diffusion and what is osmosis. Now, while actually coming to a topic that I think now you got an understanding, right, how the unicellular organisms will actually transport the substances inside the body of its organism. So it is simply by the process of diffusion. Now let us try to understand how the transportation will mainly occur in plants. So the transportation is actually mainly carried out by two different tissues. So that is xylem tissue and the phloem tissue. Both are considered to be very important in transportation of both the food particles and water particles and minerals, food, water and mineral particles. Okay, when talking about the transportation of particles in plants, in specification to water and minerals, we use a xylem tissue. This is because xylem is considered to be a dead tissue. Why it is considered to be dead tissue? Because see, xylem tissue has mainly four things, that is tracheids, vessels, fibers and xylem parenchyma. So among all these four kind of tissues, we have the xylem parenchyma as a living tissue, whereas other three, that is tracheids, vessels and fibers, as considered to be dead. So therefore the majority is considered to be dead. So we are considering the xylem tissue as a dead tissue. Okay, so let us read out what is given here. So and xylem tissue is actually mainly responsible for the transportation of the water and minerals throughout the plant body. So it is mainly composed of tracheids, vessels, parenchyma and fibers. Tracheids and vessels are very important in the transportation of the water particles and for all and water particles and minerals through all the parts of the plant. When you're talking about the minerals are, so the minerals which are actually soluble in water, those kind of minerals we are actually mainly referring to. Okay, so those kind of minerals have been transported. then the xylem makes a continuous tube in plants which runs from the roots to stem and right from the right up to the leaves, veins of the plants as well, veins of the leaves as well. So first let us try to understand what is xylem and phloem, then let's go in detail about the both as well. So phloem tissue. While we are actually talking about the phloem is mainly responsible for the transportation of the food. Okay, let's do one thing, let's talk about xylem only. Okay, let us try to understand how the water is actually being transported through the different parts of the plant. Okay, so if you see here, I want to show the picture. As you can see the picture here, you can see the root hairs. So every the roots will have some kind of root hairs with it. So these root hairs will have a lesser water concentration. The soil that is surrounding these root hairs is having a greater water concentration. Therefore, as you can see, there is a difference in the pressure differences. That is, the water in the soil is having a higher pressure, and the water in the root hairs is having a lesser pressure. So in that case, a concentration gradient is used, wherein the water is actually being transported from the higher water concentration to the areas where there is a lesser water concentration, that is the root hairs. So in that case, after that, the water is being transported to the secondary roots. Then after that, it is transported to the primary roots. Then after going to the top, after going to the base of the plant, what happens is that with the help of the transpirational pull. So here the word transpiration comes into picture. So what is actually this transpiration? Transpiration is nothing but the loss of water from the aerial parts of the plant is called as transpiration. So what from the aerial parts of the plant is nothing but from all the leaves and everything. Those the parts of the plant where we can actually see a lot amount of water loss, those parts are considered to be the aerial parts. Okay, so transpiration mainly occur. What happens is that as the water is actually coming up, there is a transpirational pull which is actually being created. So there is actually a suction which is actually being created. So this suction water will pull up the water from the roots, from the root hairs onto the top of the leaves. So let us see what is the process which takes place. So first is the ascent of sap. So what is this ascent of sap is nothing but, so the upward movement of the water and minerals from the roots of the different parts is called as ascent of sap. First you have to remember that the many factors are at play in ascent of sap, and as it takes place in many steps, and they are explained as follows. If you see here, if you see this ascent of sap here, as first the osmosis will take place. Because of the osmosis, that means because of the concentration gradient or osmosis you can say, because there is a difference in the pressure differences between the water molecules in the soil and the root hairs. So first, by the process of concentration gradient, the water is transformed to the root hairs. From there, with the help of the root pressure comes into picture. So this root pressure will actually mainly activate during both the daytime and the nighttime. But the root pressure is a kind of a slow process as compared to the transpiration. So this root pressure will occur both during the daytime and nighttime, whereas transpiration will only occur during the excess of humidity or excess of sunlight only. This will occur, whereas transpiration will not occur during the nighttime. So during the nighttime as well, when how the water will actually transport, with the help of this root pressure only the water is transported. So the walls of the cells of the root hairs are very thin. So the water from the soil enters the root hairs because of the osmosis, and the root pressure is mainly is responsible for the movement of water up to the base of the stem. As you can see, the roots. Okay, I'll show a picture. As you can see the picture, so here you can see the root hairs actually. So from here, I'll show it here. Here you can see the root hairs. So from here the root hairs will be there, and from there the water is transported till the base of the plant. Till the base of the plant with the help of a process called as a root pressure. So with the help of this process only, the water is actually being transported. So from the root hairs till the base of the plant, with the help of the root pressure process, the water is transported, enters the root hairs because of the because of the root pressure only. The water will reach the base of the plant. Then comes the capillary action. So what is this capillary action? Is that a very fine tube is called as a capillary. So water or any other liquid rises to the capillary because of the physical force, and this phenomenon is considered to the capillary action. So water in stem rises up to some height because of this capillary action. So what happens is that if you see here, because of the capillary action, because of there are some kind of a fine tubes wherein the water will actually travel. So from here it will reach to not up to this height, but only to some extent, only till the stem of the plant, only till a little bit, till here you can see half of the plant you can see. So first the root pressure comes into picture. First osmosis or the concentration gradient, next is the root pressure, and third one is a capillary action. Okay, then fourth one is adhesive or the cohesive. So the water molecules will make a continuous column in the xylem because of the forces of adhesive and the cohesive. See, adhesive and the cohesive forces are nothing but based on the different particles that will try to attract the molecules of different parts of molecules. Okay, different molecules it will try to attract like a gum. Okay, so because of these forces of adhesive and cohesive forces, the xylem will actually form a continuous column. So here in the so you might be, it will form a continuous column of water. It will form with the help of the tracheids and vessels. It will form a continuous column of water. So with the help of that, it will transport it to all the parts of the plant. So the xylem will form a continuous channels. Channels are nothing but with the help of the tracheids and vessels. It will form some kind of a tubes kind of thing, and with the help of it will transform all the products. Okay. Then water molecules will make a continuous column, and because of in the xylem because of the adhesive and the cohesive force. Then fifth one comes the transpiration pull. So what is this actually, the transpiration pull? The transpiration pull is actually being created. So you must be wondering how the transpiration pull is actually responsible for the transportation of water to other parts of the plant. If you see here, the leaf is the last part when the water is actually being transported. So and from the leaves only the transpiration process will actually take place. So from the leaves, from all the roots and from all the stems and everything, with the help of the transpiration pull, with the help of that suction that is actually being created, it is getting transported to all these leaves and everything. And from the leaves, it is the transpiration process is actually being taking place. So in that process of transpiration, only, the water is transported to each and every part of the cell. Okay. Then the loss of water through the stomata and lenticels in plants is called as transpiration, and transpiration through the stomata creates a vacuum which creates a kind of suction called as transpirational pull. So this transpiration pull will suck the water column from the xylem tubes, and thus the water is able to rise to greater heights even in the tallest plants. So because of this transpirational pull only, the water is able to reach even a greater heights in the tall plants as well. So the root pressure is not a kind of a good process, but if you see in the tall plants like a coconut tree or some other kind of trees, the root pressure is not easily available, because this kind of a pressure is not convenient as well, because it is a slow process, and it is also not that efficient also, whereas the transpiration process is so efficient that it actually helps in driving of the water from the roots to the top of the plant, even in the coconut trees as well. As you can see, coconut trees are very, very tall. So even in those plants, with the help of the transpiration, only the water is able to reach the top trees, the top coconut trees as well. Okay, so that is a transpiration pull which is actually being created. So I think now you got an understanding that what is actually the different processes as you will involve. So first, if you see the root hairs, with the help of the concentration gradient or the osmosis, the water is transformed to the root hairs. From the root hairs, it will pass through the secondary roots, then the primary roots with the help of the root pressure. Okay, root pressure comes into the picture. And from the root pressure, it will go on to up to some height, only a little bit of height, with the help of the capillary action. And from the capillary action, it will form some series of channels with the help of the tracheids and vessels, and with the help of that it will form some tubes, and it will form a cohesive and adhesive forces, because of which it will transport the water to all the different parts of the plant. And after this is possible during the night time also. Okay, whereas if you see the transpiration, so transpiration is also the same process wherein it will create a kind of a suction, it creates a kind of a pressure from the bottom, that it will dry the fluids, from the bottom of the plant to the top of the plant, that is leaves, wherein the loss of water will actually take place from the leaves, that is stomata, that is the guts the water is actually being lost from the stomata. Okay, with the pores that are present, with the pores or the holes that are being present, the loss of water will actually take place from the aerial parts of the plant, that is the stomata and the lenticels which are present in the stigmas, and the transpiration process will take place. So that is the end. So what happens is that if you see in the textbook, I'll show the textbook. Textbook good picture is actually been given in your textbook if you refer it. Let me show it so that you can get a clear understanding about it. As you can see here, the water is actually coming from the root hairs, it is going to the plant, and then from the stem of the plant, and from there it is going to the these are the woody stems, so they'll have the lenticels. From that also the loss of water will actually take place. Okay, and after that from all the aerial parts of the plant, that is the stem, the leaves and everything, the greeny part, the herbaceous plants, the greeny parts, from that the transpiration process will actually take place, and from that with the process the loss of water will actually take place, and with that the transpiration process will mainly occur. I think now we got an understanding that entire process, how the transpiration mainly occur in the entire process of this with the help of this xylem and trichins. Okay. And the important point is that, as you can see, the transpiration helps in the absorption. More importance is actually given to the transpiration code. Okay, but during the night time, if you see, the more importance is given to the root pressure, because transpiration will only occur during the sunlight, whereas the root pressure will occur during the daytime and the sunlight. And during the night time, as there is no transpiration, the root pressure plays a very important role in the transporting of the water to all the different parts of the plant. Becomes a major driving force in the movement of water in the xylem. Okay, now I think you got a clear understanding about what is actually the process which is involved in the transportation of water in the plants. Okay, and this process actually does not require any energy. So plants do not require any energy for the transportation of this water through all the parts of the plant. It does not require any energy, and this process is also considered to be the negative gravitational force. It is against the gravity. So this xylem is considered to be against the gravity. Whereas if you see the phloem, it is considered to be against, and for it is considered to be against and for the gravity as well, because it is bidirectional in nature. Okay, negative gravity, if you say, you will say it's for xylem, and you can say negative and positive gravity for both for phloem tissues. Okay, I think now we got a clear understanding about how the water is actually transported. Okay, you can see here the clear perfect picture is being given here. So the water in the soil. So while at the end of the lesson, we'll actually kind of discuss everything. So now let us talk about how the food is actually being transported in the plant, in different parts of the plant. So here comes a picture that is a phloem tissues. So phloem tissues are considered to be the living tissues. So the phloem tissues are mainly responsible for the transportation of the food particles to different parts of the plant. Okay. Now phloem tissues, why they are considered to be the living tissues? Because there are 4 different types. That is 5, you can say. Sieve tubes, companion cells, then phloem parenchyma, phloem scalenchyma, and phloem fibers, you can say. Phloem fibers. Or phloem vessels also, you can say, anything. Okay. So these are the 5 different tissues which are actually being present. And only the sieve tubes and the companion cells are mainly responsible for the transportation of food to different parts of the plant. Okay. And this scalenchyma and parenchyma we have already seen in last year, so that is not much required. Parenchyma will mainly help in the storing of the food particles. Okay, and collenchyma will actually help in the transportation of air particles, and scalenchyma will form a hard structure. Okay, so and phloem tissue is considered to be a living tissue. Why it is considered to be a living tissue? Because except the phloem scalenchyma, all are considered to be are living. Phloem scalenchyma is a dead tissue, and rest of all, that is seed tubes, companion cells, then phloem parenchyma, then what is this? Then fibers, vessels, everything considered to be living only, okay, except the phloem parenchyma. This phloem is mainly responsible for the transportation of the food to different parts of the plant. Now let us try to see what is the main process which is actually involved in the transportation of the food particles to different parts of the plant. Okay. So if you see the food particles, so the food particle, where is actually the food particles prepared? So by the process of photosynthesis, if you see that the glucose is the food particle that is being prepared. So this glucose, which is actually stored in the form of starch as well, we have seen previously in the nutrition topic, that it is stored in the form of starch in the plants. Okay. Then this particle, so the food which is actually prepared during process of photosynthesis has to be transported to all the different parts of the plant, and this process will actually use energy. It is an endothermic process where it will use the energy in order to transport the food particles to all the different parts of the plant. Okay. And if you see, and as I already told, the seed tubes and companion cells are very, very important. Now let us try to read out so that we can actually understand this. Okay, unlike the transport system in xylem, it can actually be by simple physical forces. So okay, I forgot to mention. So the process of transportation of water is called as transpiration. The process of transportation of food is called as translocation. So this is a very important point. So the food which is actually being prepared by photosynthesis with the help of the ATP energy molecules, it is transported to the different parts of the plant. Okay, and so materials like sucrose is transferred into phloem tissue using an energy called as ATP. So with the help of this kind of tissue, with the help of the energy, the food particles are being transferred to the phloem tissues or fibers, that is companion cells and seed tubes. So this will actually increase the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing the water. So during that time, what happens is the water will also move through these companion cells and the seed tubes, because of which it creates a lot of pressure, it creates a high pressure situation. Therefore, with that high pressure situation, it moves the material to all the places which have a very low pressure as well. So what happens is, one thing I would like to say. So what happens is the energy is mainly responsible. So the food particles which are actually prepared by photosynthesis, with the help of energy, they have been forced into the seed tubes and the companion cells. In that process also, water will also move through that. Okay, so this process is called as osmotic pressure, because with the help of the semi-permeable membrane, the particles have been transported. So in that process, what happens is that it creates a very high pressure, because the water molecules and the food particles are there. So therefore, it creates a very high pressure situation. Therefore, the water is then transported to all the different parts of the plant which have a very low pressure. So this will allow the phloem fiber to move the material, to transfer the materials based on the plant's needs and the problems. So for example, in the spring season, the sugar is stored in the root of the stem, which will be transported to the parts which need the energy to grow. So in a similar way, it will transport all the different particles to different parts of the plant for the process of, with the help of this process, that is osmotic pressure. So most of the questions will be asked based on this transpirational or what is transpirational role and how it is actually helpful in transporting of water and minerals. So that is very important. Whereas when this comes to here, seed tubes and companion cells are very important. With the help of the osmotic pressure and the energy, the osmotic pressure is a process. So with the help of that, it helps in transporting of the food particles into this. It helps in forcing it in the food particles into the seed tubes and the companion cells. It also and they also transport the and they also force the water molecules as well. So in that process, what happens is there is a difference in the pressure that is created. That is, this particles is having a high pressure. With that goes to all the places where there is a low pressure. And therefore, this process is considered to be bidirectional in nature, wherein it goes towards and against the gravity as well. Towards the gravity and against the gravity as well. Okay? Therefore, it is bidirectional. Therefore, this process will actually utilize the energy. Whereas xylem will, transportation of water and minerals will not utilize the energy. Whereas phloem will utilize the energy. And I can say this is a positive and the negative gravity of towards or against the gravity. You can see. Therefore, it is bidirectional in nature, and phloem is a living tissue, because except phloem, parenchyma, all are considered to be the living tissues, because phloem sclerenchyma is considered to be a dead tissue. Okay, so that is what we can actually understand from both these transportation in animals. I think now we got an understanding of how the transportation in animals will actually take place, right? See, I guess the live is going on, right? Live from my oh, I haven't disabled the chat. Let me check once. I know about it. I have disabled the chat. I don't know. Okay. Fine, I don't want to waste time on that. Okay. I think now you got a clear-cut understanding about this entire process, that is how the transportation of food and water molecules will actually take place. Will actually take place with the help of the xylem and the phloem tissues. Okay. So this is the entire process which is mainly involved in that. And okay, now the very important topic, that is the transportation in human beings. This is such a very important process. So if you see actually, so I'm actually using a kind of a 7th class textbook. If you see, I think you can see, right? I'm kind of using this 7th class textbook because in this all the 4 chapters have actually been mentioned. So you can use any of the textbook, any of the reference material, and the kind of language which is used in this textbook is very simple also to understand as well. You can use any other biology. For biology, physics and chemistry, you can use LYPMH. That is the most preferable book and it is used by everyone. So okay, that is the best choice for you all. Okay, the transportation, water, minerals, and the food. Okay. I think now got an understanding, right? Now let us see what is a circulatory system. Now circulatory system, how the transportation will actually take place in animals. That is in human beings, how the circulation process will actually take place. The circulatory system is nothing but which is mainly responsible for the transportation of various substances in human beings. That is considered to be the circulatory system. Okay. So before we actually go into the topic, let me actually make a simple flow chart for you. So the human transport system is mainly divided into 2 types, that is a blood transport, blood vascular system, and the lymphatic system. Okay, so I guess there is no flow chart which is actually mentioned here. Let me check if I can actually do anything in the transportation. So this is a circulatory system flow chart. If you can actually get anything, otherwise. Okay. Now let us see what is actually the process of transportation, that is a circulatory system, how it is actually been taking place in human beings. So first, the circulatory system is mainly divided into 2 types, that is a blood vascular system and the lymphatic system. So when you're actually talking about the blood vascular system, you should always come in the picture. It comes in the picture with the blood vessels and the heart play very important role. Okay, and this blood vessels, so blood vessels are nothing but, what are these blood vessels? The blood vessels are nothing but all the vessels. So vessels are nothing but they're kind of a tubes. So when I say tubes, it is nothing but arteries, veins, and capillaries. And arteries are, apart from arteries, veins, and capillaries, we also have RBCs, WBCs, and thrombocytes. Okay, these are the 3 different things that we have: RBCs, WBCs, and thrombocytes. And in the lymphatic system, we have 3 types, that is lymph, lymph nodes, lymph capillaries, and lymph vessels. So these are the 4 different things that we have in the lymphatic. That's a brief introduction I want to give, and after that, let's go in detail of every topic. You will not get confused anywhere. And in our body, 45% is considered to be blood and 55% is considered to be the plasma. Okay, plasma will actually help. So blood will actually consist of a fluid kind of a medium called as plasma, which mainly helps in the transportation transportation of the different kind of substances. Helps in transportation of food particles, nitrogenous waste, or for the removal of the nitrogenous waste, so that it is helpful. Then for any other particles, so then any number of functions which are mainly performed by blood and plasma. So they also help in the transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide for the purification of the blood. So everything will actually take place with the help of this. So plasma and everything. So now let us try to understand what are actually the main functions of blood. So when we actually talk about the main functions of blood, we have to keep in mind about all these important functions, important points that we have to keep in mind. So blood will actually help us in transportation of the various substances to the site and from the site, from that particular site as well. So it will also transport the nutrients for the body, for the storage, and for so utilization of those things. Also the blood will actually transport the different kind of materials. Okay, and the blood will also helps in the transportation of oxygen and the carbon dioxide. So first point, it helps in transportation of nutrients for storage and for utilization. The second point, it helps in transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide height. So that is a body temperature at height. So that is a body temperature. The blood will also make sure that it is the constant temperature is actually be maintained in the human beings as well. Okay, and this will also ensure that the hormones, there are different kind of hormones in the body, so will act upon the different organs also. Based on that also, we'll try to regulate that action as well. And so these are the different functions which are actually performed by blood. Now let us try to understand what is actually the main function of RBCs, WBCs and the platelets. So this is a very important topic that you have to remember, because from these also many times the questions are being asked actually. So when you actually talk about the blood, we should always keep in mind that RBCs, WBCs and platelets are actually there. So let me give you, so RBCs. So RBCs are nothing but these are the special cells which they have contained the hemoglobin, because of which they are red in color. They help in the transportation of so many particles. Everything, all the functions of blood will come under RBC. They help in transportation of oxygen, carbon dioxide, food particles and nitrogenous waste. Everything are being performed by RBCs. Okay, and the red color of the RBCs is because of the pigment, red color pigment, which is called as hemoglobin, and this hemoglobin is considered to be the respiratory pigment as well. So this is very important, RBCs, and this RBCs are also called as erythrocytes. Okay, and the WBCs. And WBCs are very important in the body of the human beings, because these WBCs will actually help us in the will act like the soldiers of our body. So where there are any foreign particles or any other dangerous particles also, they try to destroy these particles. Therefore, they are considered to be the soldiers of our body. And these WBCs are also these WBCs, that is white blood corpuscles, are in white color, and they do not contain any hemoglobin, and therefore they are also called as leukocytes. Okay, this WBC you are going to learn more about it in the lymphatic system also. That also you are going to see. Okay, then the third important thing is the platelets. So these platelets are also called as thrombocytes. They help in the clotting of the blood. So how they actually help in the clotting of the blood? So whenever there is an injury or whenever there is actually a damage in the blood vessels also, they immediately clot the blood, so that excess of the blood is also not removed from the body, and also they'll also ensure that the foreign particles will also not enter our body of our organism as well, or living beings as well. Therefore, they help in the clotting of the time during the time of an injury. They help in the clotting of the blood. Okay. Those are the main different functions of RBCs, WBCs and leukocytes. Platelets. Okay, I think what you understand. RBCs are also called as erythrocytes. The WBCs are called as leukocytes, and platelets are called as thrombocytes. Okay, so these are the different functions. These are different parts which are actually there in the blood. Okay. Now let us try to understand what are arteries, veins and capillaries. These are very important. Arteries are the kind of vessels. They are the kind of tubes, you can say. So they help in the transportation of the blood from the heart to different parts of the body. And therefore these arteries always carry a purified blood, that is oxygenated blood. Okay, purified blood. So whenever we come to know about the oxygenated blood, it is always, you have to keep in mind that it is a purified blood. Okay, so whenever we come to the impure blood, it is always we are going to tell about the deoxygenated blood, that is the blood which contains a carbon dioxide. That blood is considered to be impure blood. Okay, that is the main reason. Okay. carrying from the heart. So arteries will mainly help us in carrying of the pure blood from the heart to different parts of the body. And whereas veins will actually help us in the carrying of the blood from different parts of the body to the heart. Okay, so let me show a detailed picture, that is double circulation picture, so that you can also get an understanding about it, and it will be amazing. Let me show once. Here's a picture. Yes. Okay, double circulation picture is being given here. So let's. This is given in textbook, right? I've seen in textbook. Yes. So arteries from the heart, they help in carrying the purified blood to different parts of the body, and from there they help in the transportation. Veins will help in the carrying of the blood from different parts of the body to the heart. Okay, that is the main function of arteries and veins. And you should always keep in mind about the structure of arteries and structure of veins, and why the blood is under the pressure in arteries and why the blood is not under pressure in veins. So there's the important question which can be asked in board exam as well. So why it is that the arteries have the thick walls whereas veins do not contain the thick walls? It is because I think veins will have the thick walls, right? I remember. So this is because the blood which is actually coming from the lungs, it is under very high pressure. So in order to tolerate that greater pressure, the arteries are having a thick walls. Okay. So because of that only, arteries are mainly having a thick walls, because the blood which is coming from the heart is under a very high pressure. So because of it, in order to maintain that pressure, having the thick walls. Whereas if you see veins are having a thin walls, and because of which they have a thin walls, and because the blood is under not under greater pressure as well. And if you see the arteries and veins as well, arteries are not having valves, whereas veins are having the valves. So if you see whenever if you take any water tap as well, if the water is coming under greater pressure, there are less chances that the water can revert back, can actually go back. Whereas if you see when the water is under less pressure, you can see that there are some chances of the blood to go back, to go back. So for that not to happen, in order to prevent the backflow of the blood, we have the valves. So veins will actually have the valves because the blood is not under greater pressure. Because of it, there might be some chances of the blood reverting back. The blood can go back. So in order to prevent those kind of situations, you can see that veins are actually having the valves, where arteries are not having the valves, because blood is already under greater pressure and there is no chances of reverting back of the blood. So that's the reason the arteries are not having the valves, whereas veins are having the valves. Now you got an understanding, right? Yes. Now let us try to understand a very, very important function, that is the heart. So heart we have. Okay, I forgot a few more important things are also there. And veins, if you see, veins are just under the skin. They are not, you can just actually see all these green color things, you can see those are veins. Whereas if you want to see the arteries, they are situated deep under the skin. So they are situated deep. So you cannot see. So whereas these veins and nerves you can see actually. Whereas arteries cannot be seen because they are deep under the skin. Okay. So after I explain this, let us conclude all the important points of arteries and veins distribution. Okay. And okay, I have discussed all. So let us have a distinguish between what is actually the arteries and what is actually the veins. First point of arteries and veins is that first based on the high pressure and the low pressure. The arteries, the blood is under high pressure, and veins, the blood is under less pressure. And arteries, the blood is situated, the arteries are situated deep under the skin, whereas veins are situated just under the skin. And arteries are not having the valves because the blood is already under greater pressure. Veins are having the valves because the blood is not under the greater pressure. And arteries having the thick walls, whereas veins are not having the thick walls, they're having the thin walls. And arteries always carry the oxygenated blood. Oxygenated nothing but pure blood, or the blood which is rich in oxygen. Whereas the veins will always carry the deoxygenated blood, or the blood which contains the carbon dioxide. and the blood and the vein arteries will help us in carrying the blood from the heart to different parts of the body, whereas veins will actually help us in carrying the blood from different parts of the body to the heart. So these are the very, very important 5 points you have to always keep in mind when you make a distinguish between arteries and veins. I think now you got an understanding, right? Now, very, very important, the structure of the heart. So heart, the size of the heart is the size of a fist. What is the size of a fist? This is the size of your heart. And the size and heart is situated in the middle. It is not completely towards the left side. It's situated in the middle. Okay. Then it's slightly it is bulged towards the left side. Okay, but otherwise you can say it is in the middle, but slightly bulged towards the left side. And per minute you can see 72 beats. You can see 72 pulse rate is 72 beats per minute. Okay, that is a beat rate, heartbeat you can see, and 72 times it will beat in 1 per minute. Okay, and that is called as a heartbeat. Heartbeat is nothing. Heartbeat is not the contraction and the relaxation of the heart in a specified period of time. That is considered to be the heartbeat. Okay. Now let us try to understand the very, very important points. That is the structure of the heart and what actually divides the heart and how the blood will actually flow in the heart and how the blood is actually purified. Okay, so these are the important points that you have to keep in mind. Okay, and actually I forgot about capillaries as well. So let us quickly discuss about what are these capillaries as well, so that we don't get confused as well. So what happens is that these capillaries are nothing but they are the network of both arteries and veins. See, they can actually go into the places where the blood will actually, where the arteries and veins will not actually go. So they can actually penetrate, they can actually go into the various tissues of our body. Okay, then this also helps in exchange of nutrients, gases and mineral substances. They are a network of fine blood. Fine means very thin, very small blood vessels, and these capillaries join up to form veins which empty into the heart. Okay, so if you see the picture also, if you see here, if you see the down picture, you can see that arteries and veins together are actually forming a network. So the network of arteries and veins will actually form the what is called as capillaries. I think now you got an understanding, right? Yes. So this entire thing is called double circulation. I'll come to that picture afterwards. Yeah? So let us try to understand this. Okay, I think we have understood right here. Tubes. I think we have everything we have discussed. So leakage of the blood platelets also we have discussed. So think about the situation where we are injured and start bleeding. So naturally the loss of the blood from the system has to be minimized. In that case, the leakage would lead to a loss of pressure, because of which the efficiency of the pumping system will also reduce. So in order to avoid that, in order to reduce, in order to not to have a situation wherein there is the efficiency of the pumping system is actually decreasing, the platelets are being used because they help in the clotting of the blood in the case wherever there is an injury. Okay, so we have discussed this everything, and let us now very important thing that is heart is the size of a heart, size of a fist. Okay, so the left side, so this is considered to be the right side. Okay, so if you see for your, so generally this is your left side and this is the right side, right? But I'm to your mirror, I'm your mirror image. So the heart picture, as you can see here, this side is considered to be your right and this side is your left. Actually, if you can see for yourself, this side is considered the right and this side is the left. But when you're keeping in a book and a picture, you consider this as the right and this as the left. Now you can understand. Okay, and this is called our heart is mainly divided into 4 chambers. So the first chamber is the right atrium, then down of it is called as the right ventricle, then this is the left atrium and this is called as left ventricle. You can call it as atrium or you can call it as both auricle and atrium. Both are considered to be true. Okay, so the blood, so the veins. So the veins are the ones which actually carry the blood from different parts of the body to the heart, which they carry the deoxygenated or the impure blood. So they help in transporting the blood to the heart. So the blood will actually come. Heart is situated here. From the top also the blood will come. From the bottom of the blood will come. So the top. So from so impure blood which comes from the top will enter through the superior vena cava, and the blood from the lower parts of the body it will enter to the inferior vena cava. Okay, from inferior vena cava and superior vena cava, the blood will enter into the right atrium. Okay, after entering the right atrium, it will go to the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle it will go to the pulmonary artery. Here the blood is all the deoxygenated blood only. Here it is not carrying the oxygenated blood, that you have to keep in mind. And in the arteries and in the veins there is always one exception. You can see that exception is nothing but, what is that exception? The arteries. The arteries will carry an oxygenated blood and veins will carry the deoxygenated blood. But the pulmonary artery will always carry the deoxygenated blood. So from where to where? From the right ventricle they'll carry to the lungs. That is pulmonary artery. That's a pulmonary vein. So if you can see here, I'll show the double circulation. As you can see, this is the pulmonary artery. So this pulmonary artery will carry the deoxygenated blood from here to the lungs. Okay, lung capillaries. With the help of alveoli, the exchange of gases, the blood is being purified. From there, it will enter into the left side of the heart with the help of the pulmonary vein. So pulmonary vein will always carry the oxygenated blood. That is the only exception that you have to remember between the arteries and veins distinguishment. Okay, difference. Okay, and after it will enter to the pulmonary vein from the lungs, and from that, from the lungs, it will enter to the left auricle or left atrium. From that it will go to the left ventricle, and from there it will go on to the with the help of aorta. Aorta it is also considered of the main artery. So this, with the help of this aorta, it will transport to the all arteries, and from arteries it will transport to different parts of the body. It will transfer the oxygenated blood to different parts of the body. Okay, and again the capillaries will actually help in the transporting to different places, and that and all the deoxygenated blood is actually given to the capillaries, and capillaries will deposit all the blood into the veins, and this cycle will go on completing, and this cycle will goes on. Okay, so I think now you have gotten understand. Let me explain once again with the flow chart here. So the blood from inferior vena cava and superior vena cava, the blood is actually coming in. It will go on to the right atrium, from right atrium to the right ventricle, from the right ventricle to the lungs. It will go with the help of the pulmonary artery. So in the lungs, the purification of the blood will actually take place with the help of alveoli, and after that the purified blood will enter through the pulmonary vein, and with the help of pulmonary vein they'll enter into the left atrium. From the left atrium they'll go to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, with the help of the aorta, will transport it to the upper and the lower parts of the body. The purified blood has been transported. This is a cycle that you have to remember, and this entire process is considered to be the double circulation process. Okay. So this entire process, that is the transporting of the blood to the to the heart, and from the heart to the lungs, and from lungs to the heart, and from heart to the different parts of the body, that entire process is called as double circulation. So if you see here, if you see the textbook as well, you can see the blood is circulating 2 times, from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here, here. So 2 times circulation is taking place. So this is one circulation and this is one circulation. Therefore this is considered to be double circulation. And what is pulmonary circulation? What is systemic circulation? That also we are going to see. Pulmonary circulation is a kind of circulation wherein the blood is actually going to the lungs and the pure blood is actually coming to the heart. That is considered as the pulmonary circulation. Whereas what is the systemic circulation is nothing but the purified blood which goes to the aorta and to the arteries and different parts of the body, and again comes to the veins and transports it to the heart. This process is called as pulmonary. This process is called systemic circulation. You see the good pictures about double circulation. I think this is fine. So from here to here, this entire process is called pulmonary circulation, and this is called as, this entire thing is called as systemic circulation. This is very, very important that you have to remember from the board point of view and from the examination point of view. And that together, that's pulmonary and systemic circulation together, the combination of those both will make up the double circulation. Okay? That is the entire thing that I actually want to tell you all about. Okay? Now let us see what is actually the diastolic pressure and the systolic pressure. Okay, that we are going to see. Diastolic pressure is nothing but it is a ventricular relaxation. If you see here, so whenever the ventricle will actually relax, so whenever, see, for example, let us take a sponge. If you take a sponge and if you dip it in water, what happens? It will try to gain the water. It will try to gain the water. In the similar way, it will absorb the water. In the similar way, the right ventricle also, whenever it will relax, the blood from the right atrium will flow into the right ventricle. Whenever, see, heart will always, it is kind of this is happening. Not like the heart will completely open. It's not like that. Just it is coming like this. It is happening, right? It is coming up. It is becoming bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller. So in that process, when it is actually relaxing, the blood is actually flowing into the right ventricle. So ventricular relaxation. Ventricle is actually been relaxing. Then the blood from the right atrium will pass on to the right ventricle. Okay. Similar way, the ventricle is actually been relaxing. Ventricle is relaxing in this case. The left atrium also it will pass the blood to the left ventricle. So this is called as a diastolic pressure. Diastolic pressure. Whereas what is called as the systolic pressure? Systolic pressure, what happens is what happens is that in atrium will contract. So atrium contraction is actually been taking place. For example, if you see, otherwise you can simply say that ventricular see, in the diastolic pressure, ventricular relaxation is taking place, because of which it is trying to absorb the water which is coming from the right atrium. Whereas in the systolic pressure, the ventricular contraction is taking place. So if you now in a similar way, you have actually taken a sponge and you have actually kept it in the water and it will absorb the water. If you take the sponge, if you squeeze it, what happens is that the water will come out of it. So in the similar way, what happens is that when you squeeze, the ventricle will contract, the blood from the right ventricle will go on to the lungs with the help of the pulmonary artery. In a similar way, when the left ventricle will actually contract, when it will contract, then it will actually help in the transportation of the blood to the aorta, for different parts of the aorta. With the help of aorta to transport to different parts of the aorta. This is called as the diastolic and the systolic pressure. So what is this? Why we are actually learning about this diastolic and the systolic pressure? This is very important because if you see that page number and the next page number, so blood pressure, if you see, you can actually understand this, why it is actually important. So that so the normal body pressure is 120 by 80. So normal body pressure is 180. That is, the systolic pressure by diastolic pressure should always be equal to 120 by 80. So that is, systolic pressure is 120 and 120 mm of mercury, and diastolic pressure is 80 mm of mercury. So if you see these pictures properly as well, here it is exactly at 120. Okay, and here it is exactly at 80. So this is the temperature that it should show. Okay. So we can actually measure the blood pressure with the help of an instrument called a sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer is an instrument which is actually used in order to measure the temperature, not measure the blood pressure of a body. So high blood pressure, also called as hypertension, it is caused by constriction of arterioles, and which is also resulting in increased resistance to the blood flow. It can also lead to the rupturing of the arteries and also cause internal bleeding. As we should never be in the high pressure. High blood pressure is considered to be a hypertension situation. In that kind of situation, what happens is that the arterioles will in a high pressure situation, the blood pumping increase because of the blood pumping increasing. What happens is that it can also cause the rupturing of it can also cause the breakage of the arteries, and because of which the internal bleeding will actually take place. Internal bleeding in the arteries and venules also take place. That is a very, very bad situation. So we should always not be under high pressure also. Okay. That is the systolic and the diastolic pressure that I have actually explained. With the help of the sphygmomanometer, you can actually measure the temperature of the people. Okay. Now let us try to see what is ECG. ECG is nothing but electrocardiogram. So because of this also, you can actually measure the blood pressure. Now if you see here, if you see the heart picture, the heart is actually been divided here into different 4 chambers. If you see here, the heart is divided into different 4 chambers. So the division of the heart into different 4 chambers is very, very important. So that is actually divided with the help of septum. Septum is the one which will actually divide the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood. And why this septum is very much important? So this septum plays very, very important role. So why? Because this will ensure that the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood is not being mixed. So in order to ensure that the mixing, in order not to ensure the mixing of the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, the septum is useful. Okay. So why in a human beings, in other organisms, that is oxygenated and deoxygenated blood should not be mixed? The main reason for that is that, see, we human beings and other animals, other animals like birds and mammals need a high energy supply, and the intake of the oxygen is also very huge in those kind of animals, those kind of mammals, human beings and birds as well. So in that kind of situation, they need a high energy supply of oxygen as well, and they need an efficient supply of oxygen also. So in that situation, the separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is very, very useful. For example, if you see here, they need a high sufficient efficient supply of oxygen, and they also and to also maintain the constant body temperature also, we need the separation of the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood in the human beings. So in animals, which do not use energy for this purpose, the body temperature depends upon the temperature in the environment. Such animals like amphibians or many other reptiles like the 3-chambered hearts can actually tolerate the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood mixing. Okay, the fishes on the other hand will only have 2 chambers, that is oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood. So that the blood will actually pass to the oxygenated, will pass on to the deoxygenated blood is immediately oxygenated, and it will pass on to different parts of the fish. So this is actually the main process which is actually involved in the transportation. I think now you got an understanding, right, why there is actually a separation which is actually being created between oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, because human beings and other animals require a constant body temperature, and also ensure that there is a high energy supply, high efficient supply of oxygen also. This is very much important. And this septum, and there are also some organisms where they ensure some kind of mixing, because for example, some reptiles, snakes and some amphibians also, based on environment, those the temperature will vary in those kind of organisms. So for those kind of organisms, they have a 3-chambered heart. They have 3-chambered, that is, they have 1 ventricle and 2 auricles or atrium. So in that kind of situation, they actually ensure some mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, because they do not require any constant temperature based on environment only. However, they are actually changing the temperature, so that is not actually required. That is actually what we can actually understand. Okay, and septum. In septum also we have different types, that is intraventricular septum and intra-auricular septum. That you can just remember it. Veins and valves also we have actually discussed about the valves as well, and arterioles we have discussed, veins we have discussed, and cholesterol, HDL and LDL. So it should always important that LDL should be low and HDL should be high. High density lipids should be high and low density lipids should be low, because these low density lipids, they cause a bad cholesterol. So because of why they cause a bad cholesterol, it's because so what happens is that, if you see, I'll try to show the picture. If you see, I'll try to show PowerPoint. So these all content is not being given in the textbook, so I request you all to just please make a note of it, so that you get an understanding. So if you see, you think that this is the artery. No, another one. Okay. So do you think that this is the walls of the artery? So what are walls of the artery, as I already told you, they are very thick because the blood is under the greater pressure. So what happens is that because of the LDL and the bad cholesterol that is there, because why you can get the bad cholesterol, because of the fats, because of the different kind of products that we eat, the junk food and everything, this bad cholesterol is actually being created. So what happens is that this is okay. So this is the thing. So here what happens is so here if you can see what happens is that the outer layer, the blue color layer is considered to be the wall, and the inner layer is considered the hole, which is a kind of a tube wherein the blood is transported. So when we eat, when in the human beings LDL is very high, LDL is nothing but the low density lipids is very high, then till the all the fats and all the particles which are there, it will try to stick on to these here. So actually I'll try to show. Okay, got it. So all these particles try to stick on to this layer. Okay. So all these fat particles try to stick on to the layer. This what is, and the blood is again here, all these fats and everything, they keep on sticking continuously, they keep on getting stuck onto these walls, because of which it will happen in a person when there is a greater LDL, that is low density lipids, that is a bad cholesterol. So because of which what happens is it will keep on sticking, and because of which now you can see the blood, the space which is there for the blood is very very small again. So because of which again the blood should again travel under a greater pressure as well. So because of which sometimes it can actually cause this complete blockage of the arteries as well, and it can cause some severe damage to the people. Therefore, in order not to ensure that, in order not to happen, we should always have the low density lipids. We should always have in our body, LDL should be very much low, and that is LDL should be low, that is bad cholesterol should be low. And because it will keep on sticking to these arteries, because of which the pressure in the blood will actually keep on getting increased also, because of which they may cause a severe effect on the body of the people as well. So that is a very very because of that only it is always suggested that we should not have a very very high LDL. Okay, and we should have high HDL, that is high density lipids, whereas we should have very low of LDL, that is a low density lipids. I think now you got an understanding, right, what is actually the LDL and HDL, right? We have actually discussed everything, whatever it is there. And the two chambered hearts, if you see, fish is a two chambered heart example. Three chambered heart based on the temperature, because they do not, whereas a four chambered heart they have to maintain the constant temperature, whereas the three chambered hearts do not require the constant temperature. Based on the environment, the temperature will keep on changing. For those kind of organisms, three chambered hearts is present, so that they'll allow some mixing of oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood. Okay, so pure and impure blood will keep on getting mixed, because the cold-blooded animals like reptiles and everything else. And the last, we come to the last part of the chapter of this transportation system, that is the lymph. So what is this actually lymph? So lymph. Okay, so lymph is another type of a fluid which is also involved in the transportation. So lymph will mainly contain, these lymph are generally in the yellow color, a light yellow color, and they do not contain RBCs, because they do not contain hemoglobin or RBCs, because of which they are in the yellow color. Okay, so this is called as lymph, and or a tissue fluid, and there are actually some pores which are present in the lymph, which are present on the walls of capillaries, and some amount of plasma, proteins and blood cells will escape in these intercellular spaces and tissues to form a tissue fluid or the lymph. Okay. So capillaries, so generally the capillaries are having some pores. So because of which some amount of plasma, proteins and the blood cells will actually escape into these pores, and because of which they form a fluid tissue called as a lymph. Okay, so it is similar to that of a plasma, but the main difference is that it is colorless. Okay, and it also has a less protein content as compared to that of the plasma. So plasma is having a very high greater protein content as compared to that as having a greater high protein content. Whereas if you see the lymph is having a lesser protein content. Okay, that is the main difference which you can actually see between the lymph and that is the main difference which is actually you can see between the lymph and the plasma. Plasma is having RBCs because of which it is red in color, whereas platelets are nothing but lymph is having WBCs which are colorless because of which okay, plasma is having hemoglobin because of which it is red in color. Okay, and it also has a higher protein content as well. Whereas if you see the lymph is having a lesser protein content as compared to plasma, and it is colorless because it is having WBCs. This is the main difference that you can actually see in lymph and lymph nodes. Lymph and plasma. Okay. So lymph will drain into the lymphatic capillaries from the intercellular spaces, which will join to form a large lymph nodes that will finally open up into the large veins. So lymph carries the digest and absorb fat from intestine and drains excessive fluid from the extracellular spaces back into our blood. So what this lymph will do, they help in transportation of the digested and all these fats from the intestine, and they also help in the draining the excess of these fluids into the intercellular spaces back into the blood. Okay. So let us see what are the main functions. So lymphoid. So let me read out some important points regarding this lymph. So I actually prepared a document. If you see this, so that you will get an understanding of this entire process. So I request you all to please read this. I'll actually try to I'll try to keep it in the comment section as well as in the description also, this entire lymph topic, because that it is not mentioned deeply in the textbook also. So I actually prepared this. Okay. So all the points which are there in the textbook, it's enough, but still. So let us discuss the main functions. The main functions of the lymph is that it is a nutritive process of the body. It will take part in the nutritive process. For example, it will put the circulation into the circulation of the large protein molecules by carrying them from the tissue fluids from the tissues into the bloodstream also, and which could also not be absorbed by blood capillaries due to the large size. So lymph also carries the digestive fat for the nutritive process. So lymph protects the body by killing the germs which are drained out of the body tissues with the help of the lymphocytes containing the lymph nodes and making the antibodies also. And this lymph also helps in removing the waste materials like the fragments of the dead cells. Okay. And they also help in transportation of the carbon dioxide and nitrogenous waste into the blood through the tissue fluid, and they also carry the antibodies from the lymph nodes to the blood, and they also transport the fats from the intestine to the blood, and it also destroys the foreign particles in lymph nodes, and it will drain the excessive tissue fluids from the intercellular spaces back into the blood. So whenever there are many excess of tissue fluids which are there in the intercellular spaces, also they will try to drain it into the blood. So these are the very, very important functions of the lymph. Okay. So this entire document about this lymph also try to keep it in the description in the comment section, because it is not mentioned deeply in the textbook. So try to refer that and check it out everything, and that is the thing. I think got an understanding about the complete understanding. I told each and everything about the heart and about the lymph, about all these different parts. Okay. Now let us see what are the questions which we have to solve. Okay. So after solving the questions, we are going to end the class. Okay, end the session. Okay. And the PDF of this session is already attached to the description also. It is kept in the description, so you can just refer that. Okay. So what are the different components of the transport system in the human beings, and what are the functions of the components? So what are the different types of components that are present in human beings? That is, the blood is present, heart and blood vessels. So when you talk about the blood, you should always remember that you have to remember that RBCs, WBCs and platelets come into the picture. Whereas when you talk about blood vessels, arteries, veins, and capillaries should come into the picture, and it should immediately come into your mind. Okay, heart, blood, and blood vessels. Also, you can mention the plasma also. Okay, and what are the main functions of these components? So what are the main functions of the heart? Just to give each function about this heart, blood, and the blood vessels. So heart will actually help us in the pumping of the blood and the purification process of the blood. It also helps in the transportation of the blood. It also helps in the transporting of the blood to different parts of the body, the heart, and it also just you can mention the double circulation also. It helps in transportation of of deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and from the oxygenated blood to the heart, again to the different parts of the body. That is the main function of the heart. And heart is always continuously pumping, because of which it is trying to purify the blood. Okay, so that is the main function of the heart. Just you mention your own, any one point you can mention. If it is asked for 3-mark question. Okay, and heart, if it is asked, then you can also mention the 4 chambers of the heart are present. Right ventricle, right auricle, right ventricle, left ventricle, left auricle, left ventricle. So the 4 chambers can just mention. Okay, if it is asked for 3-mark question. And then if it is for 1 mark or 2 mark, it's not required. Okay, so so what is actually the blood? So blood is very contact some number of points are actually told. It helps in transportation of the nutrients. First point, nutrients. Then second point, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and just use the keywords. And the third point is the transportation of the nitrogenous waste and the waste products. Maintain the constant body temperature, and it helps with clotting of the blood. Anything you can mention, you can get a mark. Any 1 point. Then the different functions of blood vessels. Blood vessels are nothing but arteries, veins, and capillaries. They help in the transportation of the blood to different parts of the body, and from the different parts of the body to the heart. Okay, that is performed by arteries, veins, and capillaries. So these are the 3 things that you can mention. And if it is for a 3-mark or 5-mark answer, you have to give a detailed explanation of everything. Heart. So like if it is after 5-mark, mostly heart will mainly carry a kind of important marks. So heart will mainly carry the important marks. Out of 2 you'll get for heart, and 1.5 and 1.5 for blood vessels. So for that situation, you have to mention the entire detailed thing about the heart. So just you have to do that. So why it is necessary to separate the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in mammals? We have discussed this, because they need efficient supply of oxygen, and to also ensure that my charging is completed, and to also ensure that the efficient supply of oxygen, also to ensure that the constant body temperature. In order to ensure the constant body temperature, the separation of R is important. It is mainly separated by the septum. It contains 2 types of septum, that is endoventricular septum and interauricular septum. So these are the 2 points which you can actually mention. Okay, so it is mostly after 2-mark or 1-mark question. You can get 1 mark. So what are the different components which are transported in high organized plants? That is water and 2 conducting tissues, xylem and phloem. So what does xylem do? What is a phloem do? You can just mention the function. Xylem transports water and minerals, whereas phloem transports the food particles. Okay. Okay. Then okay, this is the question. How are water and minerals transported? You can mention everything about the root pressure. First, the concentration gradient. This is mostly asked for 2-mark or 3-mark question. Concentration gradient, then the root pressure, then the transpiration pull, then then the capillary action, then adhesive and cohesive force, then the transpirational pull, and everything. All these points have to come into the picture. Then finally the transpiration will actually take place. Okay. So this picture, if you see, is the light still running? Yes, I think it is running right now. Right. Let me check if it is running. So live stream is still continuing. So let me complete this one. Okay. So finally, let's complete these questions so that we can actually go ahead and let's complete this videos. Okay, videos still continuing. Okay, perfect. So then you can mention about the transpiration and everything. This entire process you have to mention that. Okay. Okay. Then how is the food transported? The food transported, everything you have to mention, the osmotic pressure, then C2s and companion cells, how the energy is actually being utilized for the process, how the energy is actually being utilized for the transportation process, and everything you have to mention. Okay. Okay. Energy being utilized, then how the water is also transported. So and increases also osmotic pressure in the tissue increases, causing the water to move, because of which the pressure will be created, because of which transport to all the areas where there is a less pressure. Okay. So food materials and sucrose and everything is being transported. So you can see the picture also. See, for example, here the water and everything. See, these companion cells are mainly responsible for this. Okay, then sink. So this is not required. This picture is mainly enough. Okay. Then our final and last topic is excretion. Excretion is very small. We can just complete it quickly. And after that, we are going to. After that, I'll make a separate video for the in-text questions, and I'll also try to see if I can make some extra questions also. I'll try to solve it, so that you can also get an complete understanding of about it. Okay. So I think it is already just become very lengthy. 1 hour 15 minutes it is. Okay. So then that's it. I'm going to end the live stream, and hope you all are good, and try to practice, try to learn what I have actually told in today's class, and so based on that, we'll also try to see that some extra questions will also be discussed. Okay. So that is what I would like to tell, and hope you all are fine. Then in the next class, after excretion, we'll try to start immediately. After that, we'll try to start social. I'm going to start. We'll start with first lesson, economics first lesson, and we'll go to history second lesson. We'll go. Okay. These are the main topics that we are going to cover. Okay.